Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to The Point. Hope we're all doing well on this Wednesday. A lot to dive into today. Our conference final matchups are set in the National Hockey League. We have the conference finals just tipped off in the NBA last night. Really great game one between the Lakers and Nuggets. We got Celtics Heat game one this evening from Beantown. So we'll talk about that. But I want to start today. This is kind of breaking-ish news. This broke last night as I was going to bed. And this was really an underreported story. And it's about the Arizona Coyotes, which is going to seem odd because they don't do anything to try to win or make good publicity, but they are in the news. The Arizona Coyotes had a vote in Tempe last night on the state of their arena. And basically the vote was through the public, and the people got to say if they wanted the building to become a reality, or if to accept the plans presented by the Arizona Coyotes or decline them. And there was 3 different votes, 3 different plans, and they were all rejected by the constituents, by the people of Tempe, Arizona. So with this result, effectively, as we sit right now, the Arizona Coyotes do not have an arena deal. They do not have any plans to have anything built in the next couple of years, and they are in no man's land, in a sense, because they are playing in the 5,000-seat arena in the University of Arizona, and they're there for a couple of years. But there has to be some kind of resolution to this. There has to be something figured out. And there's a couple of different ways that this can go. And I'll outline them for you. So for Arizona, one move that could be made, that Darren Dreger pointed this out on Twitter this morning. He pontificated about, could the Suns owner Matt Ishbia, who just bought the Phoenix Suns in January from Robert Sarver, would he have interest in buying the Yotes and moving them downtown? They would need renovations on the arena. This would be a partnership between the Suns and Coyotes. That is an option, but they would need renovations, and it's a lot of work. There's a lot of money. He then said potentially Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith has publicly expressed interest in an NHL team. Could Salt Lake City become a relocation target? Relocation fees are significant. This would leave Houston, Atlanta as potential expansion areas down the road, much larger expansion dollars options. But he finished saying what is likely best for all is the Coyotes and Suns partner on new building. The cost of renovating a building that has just been renovated may be too expensive. And this is kind of bringing it back to the Calgary Flames. They play in the Saddle Dome. They needed things. They needed a new arena. But in part why they needed a new arena is because they needed a new roof. It costs too much money to put a new roof on an arena. You'd rather just build a new one. Yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more, but the cost for these roofs is just crazy. They're doing the same thing in Buffalo with the Buffalo Bills currently. They're building a new stadium instead of doing big renovations. So from what we've seen in the NHL, there is not an appetite for hockey in Arizona. There just isn't. It's never been a big fan base. The Suns get great crowds. The Cardinals do fine. And it's like most markets in the United States. Hockey is second or third. You could argue fourth with the golf tournament that's down there every year that sells out. And this is the most pressing and the most interesting of it all is that Gary Bettman loves this market. He loves Arizona. He wants to see them succeed. He's backed them. He's defended them. He's talked about getting new owners, and he's done everything in his power to keep a hockey team in Arizona. And I get it from his point of view, because just think about it this way. How does a market not work when you have beautiful weather when you can sell it to players. If you had a beautiful facility in Arizona, I think people would be lining up around the block to play there because you have 365 of good weather. You have golf 365, which players love. You got close proximity to you are good teams. I mean, did I say good weather? I mean, that's all you really need. That's all. The only selling point for me, anyway, is weather. You can avoid winter, come to Arizona. Everybody's going there. Everybody's flocking to Arizona in the United States or Miami. We're seeing it now. The population spike in both of these areas is through the fucking roof. But when it comes to hockey, they don't care about it in Arizona. And Gary Bettman doesn't want to move, but if he doesn't have an option, if he doesn't have somebody that has the money to afford to build an arena, because he's unlikely to get financing, to get payments from the public based on the votes last night, he's going to have to pay for this project. He's going to outfund it. He's going to need to find another owner. He's going to need Mash Ishbia to bail him out. But if he doesn't have that, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, and the only solution is relocation. Which isn't a bad thing, but at the same time, it's a loss for Gary. It's a loss for him not to have that franchise succeed, and it makes him look bad after trying to fix it for seemingly 10 to 15 years. So, I mean, Salt Lake City doesn't exactly scream to me hockey market. Salt Lake City, what do I know about Salt Lake City? I know the weather sucks. I've heard from the NBA players this year. The All-Star game was there. The nightlife is terrible. And there's a lot of Mormons. That's what I know about Salt Lake City. Again, it could be great, but that's what I know about it, just face value. Maybe a hockey team would work there. The Jazz do okay. They're not huge attendance. Houston, Texas. Well, the Stars are selling out playoff games. The Stars are selling out playoff games. I'll give them that. But you need a hockey team in Dallas and in Houston? Yeah, it works in football. They love football down there. Two hockey markets in Texas? Atlanta? They already got out of Atlanta. Atlanta hated hockey more than they hate violence. My God, it's not working there. I don't know. They're not coming to Quebec City. They're not going to Quebec City. They're not putting a second team in Ontario. As much as Ontario people and Leafs fans seemingly jump on board that opinion. But anyway, I don't think they're doing that. Plus, relocation fees are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, which is not cheap. You have to have an arena. You have to be ready for this. I don't know. It's an interesting development, definitely. But I'll tell you, Salt Lake City is not Vegas, and it's not Seattle. Salt Lake City, I don't see players flocking there. It'll all of a sudden make Columbus look great when you're drafted. You're stoked to be in Columbus. You're stoked to be drafted to Minnesota. God, Minnesota's nightlife it's like New York compared to Salt Lake City. I mean, if you want to, if the NHL if their audience, if they're trying to attract Mormons to join the sport, if they're trying to find more religious people, like kind of take a few from the NFL and maybe take all the lovers of God and put them in the Utah market, maybe that'll work. I think I'm banned from Utah just permanently. I've never heard that, but I've through the grapevine, I've heard I'm not welcome there. But especially after this little 10-minute spiel. But I mean, come on. It's so perplexing because Arizona is awesome. Arizona has everything you'd want. what we've learned is that warm weather doesn't exactly doesn't exactly draw people to buildings. There's so many other things to do. You might be on the beach. You might just not, you sit in the sun and it becomes, you're tired, this, that, and the other. Okay, the Panthers are selling tickets now. They don't during the regular season. The Lightning do okay. The Dolphins are even, the Dolphins are a football team. Football's big. They do okay in Miami. When it comes to a fan base, they don't sell out every game. The Bucks, Jacksonville Jaguars are playing 2 games in London next year because nobody goes to the games. So these warm weather climates are proving that they're not great places to have sports franchises, which I will never understand. Because that's where I want to move. And I want to watch sports there. But yet the two ideals clash. Desert Dogs may be leaving Arizona. Doesn't mean it's not done yet. Gary Bettman might have one last trick up his sleeve. I think he's going to be calling Matt Ishbia this morning and say, "Hey, Matt, how are you? It's Gary." "Oh, Gary, good to talk to you." So, yeah, Matt, I know you just bought the Suns. You traded for Kevin Durant because you wanted to, and you traded away everything. And then you fired 2-time Coach of the Year, Monty Williams. Yeah, I know you're an impulsive guy. You know what would be really good for your portfolio? The Arizona Coyotes. You could put them both in the same arena. You guys would sell out. You get Kevin Durant. You get Austin Matthews when he leaves the Leafs. You get those 2 guys in a big arena downtown Phoenix. Oh my God, wouldn't that be great? "Well, Gary, I don't know. It's kind of hockey, Arizona. It's not exactly working." Yeah, but you could be like the Lakers and Kings. You're Los Angeles. You're New York. You're you're Toronto with the Raptors. You got 2 sports in one building. You got all that revenue, and you own them both. You're James Dolan. You're better than James Dolan because you guys are going to win down there. You guys are going to be successful. Not a bad sales pitch, Gary. Especially when you're talking about an owner. And owners have egos up to here. He'll make that call. He'll be in discussions with Salt Lake and with Houston, and he'll pretend to care, and he'll pretend like he wants to relocate. But that new downtown arena for the Arizona Coyotes would be Gary Bettman's, like his child. That would mean so much to Gary. Some success in Arizona. Will it happen or not? I don't know. But it's fascinating. 12:30, last time going to bed, right after the Nuggets beat the Lakers. And this pops up in my timeline. It's interesting. Interesting for sure. I talked about the Leafs on Monday. I think today's the day of reckoning. I think today something will happen, something will be addressed, because we're seeing it around pro sports. Philadelphia 76ers lost on Sunday to the Boston Celtics. Doc Rivers fired. Phoenix Suns, Matt Ishbia, they lost Thursday, fired the coach Saturday night. It's 48 hours. The Leafs lost on Friday. You're keeping people, you're firing people, what are you doing? I think we'll know something today. It's a prediction. No sources, I haven't heard anything about it, but I just think seems like a short period of time. In pro sports, it's a long period of time. Stanley Cups can be handed out in a month. The draft's in a month and a half. Free agent frenzies in a month and 3 quarters. It goes quick. Doesn't take long for this to happen. It all comes in waves. And as I've thought about it since I talked on Monday, touch on this briefly. Kyle Dubas really shouldn't be fired. Technically, he wouldn't be fired because he doesn't have a contract. But he's had 5 years at the job, and they've won one playoff round. So he hasn't been all that successful. Let's be honest. And he's had a good team every year he's been there. But what I will say is that he is aggressive. He's not afraid to make trades. And I think we saw a metamorphosis last year from him where he was willing to bring in players with toughness. He was willing to bring in players that have a different identity than the one that he kind of recognizes or the one that he has adopted as a general manager, which is skill, small, speed. But if he does return, again, the ultimatum is there for me. You are trading Matthews or Marner. I wouldn't say trade Austin Matthews, as I said before, you can't get centerman, you can't get D. So you don't trade them if you got them. But if Austin Matthews comes to the negotiating table when he can sign an extension July 1st, and he says, I want $15 million, you have to think about trading him. Because you're not going to win with him making that kind of money. You're not going to win with the cap structure the way it is currently. You are not going to win. And that can be unfair to players. Should he be able to make more money? Yes. Yes. Now, I will say, should he make more money than McKinnon or McDavid based on merit? No. No, it's not. He's not as good a player. The Oilers currently, on their roster, have 2 better players than the Leafs have ever had in the history of their franchise. Draisaitl and McDavid are better than any Leaf in the history of their franchise. That sounds hyperbolic, it's not. Look it up. Name me one, and I'll tell you you're wrong. But Austin Matthews, if he comes asking for 15, you won't win. So you can sign him, you can give out that press release, you can feel great about it. But in the back of your mind, you know you won't win. And it's not because he's not a great player, because he is. But the rest of your roster is going to be skadoosh. You won't have as much depth as you have in past years. And that is going to hurt you. If I'm the Maple Leafs, I asked for 13 from him. You're making more than McKinnon, you're making more than McDavid. You're the highest paid player in the league. Till McDavid's free. And you give us a chance. So if we want to bring Nylander back, but if he's agreed to that salary, and oh, by the way, it's over 8 years, then you do it. Conversation changes if the number is crazy. That is when you make a move. That is when you say, we have to trade him. Otherwise, Mitch Marner's out the door for me. It's not. And I would look at New York, and I would try to make a trade work. Because I like K'Andre Miller. If you get K'Andre Miller and Chris Kreider in a trade for Mitch Marner, I would do it. Gives you a new identity on your team, and K'Andre Miller is, to me, blossoming into a number 1 defenseman. When he's at his apex, he'll be better than Morgan Rielly. Because Morgan Rielly's a good 2, had a hell of a playoff. He's not a number 1 defenseman. Been clear-cut for a long time now. And they've never changed their philosophy on the back end. Have depth. Okay. How about have a guy that plays 30 minutes a night? Look at Dallas. Miro Heiskanen in a Game 7 regulation played 32 minutes. The dude is a flat-out stud. If the playoffs ended after 2 rounds, he might be the Conn Smythe winner. To me, it's him or Roope Hintz. One of 2 of the Dallas Stars. They've been the most impactful, and they have been rock stars. And Heiskanen just controls the game. Every time he's on the ice, good things happen, and you feel comfortable with him out there. You go from Morgan Rielly, you feel good about it, and then you go to Jake McCabe, he's struggling. So I think you got to look at the way you do business and find different ways to do it. Whether Kyle Dubas is that guy or not is a completely different story. But has he earned another couple of years? Yes. But like in anything in life, there are caveats to this. And they'll have that conversation. Brendan Shanahan and the ownership will talk to Kyle and say, are you willing to trade Mitch? And if you're not, well, then you're probably not suited for this job. Because you've had these guys for years and we haven't won anything. Winning one round in one playoff game in the second round is not close to winning a championship. You are not on the come up. You are not making strides. You are miles away from winning. And that's just the facts. You can feel like we're close, we're doing these things right, but at the end of the day, you're not that close to winning. You got to leapfrog all these teams and get 11 more wins. 11 more wins. Oof. But I expect something to happen today. Whether it's an extension that's announced for Kyle, whether they fire Sheldon Keefe, it's going to be management related, it won't be player related. But I expect something to be announced today. Might not, but I thought Wednesday was the day for me. Pro sports, things move quick, and if you're going to get a new coach, there's coaches on the market. You can bring them in, interview them, and figure out what you want to do. GMs, well, there's a bunch of them interviewing in Pittsburgh right now for president/GM roles. So you gotta get in the mix if you want to be in the mix, and that's the decision the Leafs have to make. Now the Edmonton Oilers are also out. They had their locker clean out yesterday, and it had a different tone than the Leafs one. I think the Oilers, in particular McDavid and Draisaitl, put the blame on themselves way more than the Leafs' best players. For the Leafs' best players, well, we hit a post, we gave it our best, we gave it the old college try, it just didn't go our way. The Oilers say we screwed up. We lost. It's cup or bust every year, and we didn't play good enough. Now you could say, what's the difference between the two? I think self-awareness is key in anything in life. The Leafs did not lose because of officials. The Leafs did not lose because Maple Leaf Square wasn't filled enough. They didn't lose because Radko Gudas was scarier than any member of their team. True. They lost because Florida outplayed them. They lost because they scored 10 goals in 5 games. The Oilers lost this series because they didn't defend well enough. They lost this series because they didn't defend well enough. They were undisciplined. And their team has flaws. You look at the two teams in the series, Vegas and Edmonton. Vegas has had 5 different goalies this year. You go through it. Laurent Brossoit, Aiden Hill, Michael Hutchinson played a few games for them. They have Logan Thompson. You go through the list. Goalie after goalie has played for the Vegas Golden Knights. And yet they're in a conference final for the 4th time in 6 years. Why are they here with those goalies? Some of them, maybe some of you have never heard of. They have a defense that is as good or better than any in the NHL. With Pietrangelo, a number 1 defenseman, Shea Theodore, a number 1 defenseman. You had Martinez, who's experienced as anybody. Braden McNabb knows his role. White Cloud, Nick Hague. They have an excellent defensive core. And they defend, they block shots, and their forwards give a shit as well. It's team defense throughout the lineup. They know how they have to play, and they do it. Bruce Cassidy, great coach. First year in Vegas, they're in a conference final. Edmonton, on the other hand, they got high-powered forwards. They get team toughness with Hyman, with Evander Kane, and you look at it and say, Edmonton's better than Vegas on paper. Okay. So why didn't Edmonton win? Well, you have Kulak, you have Cody Ceci, Darnell Nurse has struggled, Desharnais, oof. Bouchard is good, but at the same time, he was playing too many minutes for what he is currently as an NHL player. They didn't defend well. They turn the puck over, they take too many chances, and it burned them. When you aren't a good defensive team, when you take a lot of chances, and your goalies are C-minus level goalies, you aren't going to win. Stuart Skinner got pulled 5 times in 2 rounds, and he got pulled 3 times in this series. That can't happen. That can happen. You're not going to win if your goaltending is that suspect. So you can do one of 2 things about this. You can get better goalies, or you can improve your defense. Mattias Ekholm, I love him. He changed the team. He helped the team. I don't know if they went around without him. The way their team defended. He adds a new element to the team that I really enjoy. I think he's a fantastic player. But he can only do so much, and he's only on the ice so often. For this Oilers team, I think for Draisaitl and McDavid, they need to continue to be great, which they will, because they're the 2 best players in the NHL. But they also need to look at it and say, regular season, playoffs, we need to defend better. We need to come back. We need to give a shit more often, because if we're paying Evander Kane, if we're paying Zach Hyman, if we're paying Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, if we have more depth than before, and we're paying us a good salary, our back end isn't going to be that good, which it isn't. So we need to be aware of that, be aware of our faults, and try to cover it up a little bit. Try to help it. You got a cold sore, try to put some makeup on it, try to do something to make yourself look presentable so you don't look awful. So that's one thing. It's just committing to team defense. Coming back in your own zone. Don't split the zone. Be available for an exit pass at all times. And it's simplistic. This is hockey 101. But cover your man. Be accountable to your guy. You learn this in Adam. Who are you lined up against? Defensively, who is your responsibility? And when you're on the ice, you take that. When you know it's your up, you see a block shot, a guy's got the puck at the back end, be in the shooting lane. Do what you have to do to be there. So I think the Oilers' best players will still get a lot of points, but they might have less, but win 3-2 games. And they're going to have to with these goalies. Because here's the thing. Jack Campbell's got another 4 years at $5 million for the Edmonton Oilers. Jay Woodcroft would not play him in the playoffs. No trust, complete disarray, and what do you do going forward? I don't know. 4 years at $5 million, you have him for 1 season. Who's trading for Jack Campbell? It's unlikely any team will. Even Chicago, who stinks, are they going to trade for Jack Campbell? Would they do that? Would they take on that salary? Unlikely. They're getting Connor Bedard. You need to pretend to care a little bit. There's a lot of bad goalie contracts. You have him, and then you have Stuart Skinner. Their goalies are making close to $8 million. It's hard to win that way. It's hard to win when your goalies are making that much money. That's why Florida's an anomaly, where you look at Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight, what they take up at the cap, they barely got in. But at least Bobrovsky getting to the playoffs this season is playing like a rock star. Edmonton has $6.9 million in cap space. It's not a lot of money. Evan Bouchard's a restricted free agent. He needs a new contract. And they want to keep him. But you also look around and say, whoa, we might want to add other pieces to our team. We might want to look at our goalies. How do we go about doing this? So let me just read you some of the free agents that are coming up for the Oilers because to me, their list is it's interesting. So here's unrestricted: Derek Ryan, T.S. Janmark, Devin Shore, Nick Bukestad, Klefbom, Ryan Murray. They have McLeod, Klim Kostin, and Evan Bouchard as RFAs. I think they want all those guys back. Kostin and Bouchard, certainly. McLeod, maybe not. They're UFAs. I think they're comfortable with losing all of them. But they want to keep all those RFAs, and you want to do some stuff as well. Plus, can you add anything on the back end? Do you look at a Matt Dumba in free agency to add to your team? Not my favorite guy, but it's a limited. When it comes to defensemen in free agency this season, it's not great. So you're going to have to be smart or find a way to trade stuff. If I'm Edmonton, I consider buying out Jack Campbell if I can't get a trade for him. It was 1 year. I get it. But we saw what he was in Toronto, where every game's his fault, and his confidence goes from 100 to negative 100 in a second. He doesn't have, as an athlete, you need just to have that baseline of arrogance that you know you're going to be very good on any given night because that's what you got here. He doesn't seem to have that. He seems to have less. He has no ego. He has no confidence. He doesn't trust his ability in the net, and then it hurts the team. He's a problem, not a solution. Jack Campbell, Matt, it's funny, Oilers and Leafs have similar issues. They both need defensemen, and they both have goalie problems because the Leafs are going to have Matt Murray, who's got a year left on his deal. What do you do with him? He's got a no trade. Jack Campbell doesn't. You can ship him anywhere. But I mean, for a team like Chicago, yeah, you stink right now, and you want to get to the cap floor, but you have Connor Bedard. You expect to turn this around quicker than you did before because you have a generational talent. So you're not going to take on shitty salary if you hope to be good in the not-too-distant future. Plus, you're going to want a good piece back. For the Oilers don't have their first-round pick. Traded it for Ekholm. So you don't have that. What player's going back to Chicago? Who's going back in the deal? These are all the things you have to consider. The bad teams just aren't going to take on bad contracts because they don't want to be bad forever either. Is Arizona going to take on Jack Campbell? Unlikely. They're not paying the rest of that deal. They hate paying players anything. They don't have the money to pay them. So I think the Matt Murray trade's easier to pull off because he's got 1 year left on his deal, and maybe the Leafs probably hoping he has an injury and retires. So you don't have to deal with him anymore. I think he's getting his money. I don't think he's not leaving without getting that check. That's for sure. But you got to be careful with contracts. And you got to be, because before you know it, Jack Campbell, number one goalie, we're stoked to have him. He's our future. And middle of the season, you sign Stuart Skinner to a multi-year extension as well. So you have two goalies under contract long-term. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to work. Unless you're paying two goalies low salaries. Unless you're Vegas, you're just paying them pennies on the dollar to come in and play for you. Or you're Carolina, where Freddie Anderson makes a decent chunk of change, and then Antti Ranta makes, what a backup makes. Both of them play, and you make it work. Dallas, Jake Ottinger's the number one goalie. He doesn't make all that much money yet. So it's sustainable, and you can do it. For the Oilers, for the Maple Leafs, they're tough decisions, and you got to find a way to work them out. Mrazek went to Chicago last year from the Leafs. Could they do that again with Matt Murray? Maybe. But again, he has to accept a trade. He was in Ottawa. They tried to move him before. He blocked a trade. He would only go to the Maple Leafs. He wanted to stay in Canada. He wanted to stay in Ontario. That was the only place he was willing to go. They would do anything to get him off the Bucks. They go to Toronto. That's one move Kyle Dubas has to answer for. What the hell were you thinking? Everybody questioned it at the time. Everybody that questioned it was correct. He was wrong. The Leafs organization was wrong. He was a flat-out disaster trade, was no good for the team, was not reliable, and he was sitting with a hat on the bench in your biggest game of the season. Sometimes you're just stuck with contracts. Louis Eriksson was in Vancouver a long time. They never got rid of him. They signed him to that deal, and they were stuck with it. Milan Lucic was traded. He was on the Oilers originally, went to Calgary. Calgary was stuck with that contract till the end of it. James Neal got hurt and retired. Oilers got a better break than the Flames did. Kyle Oposo, still in Buffalo, was the captain last year, is a UFA now. He played out the length of that contract, got a shit ton of money, and was not worth it. That year, I think it was 2014, 2015, that year of just Franz Nielsen got a huge contract, and a bunch of guys that didn't. Grabner might have got one that year, and it was just a lot of bad money spent. Look at these goalie deals; a lot of them the same too. It's a hard position to predict, and you got to find somebody to take on the contract, or you got to buy them out. Because if I'm teams around the league, I know how hard it is with the cap. I know teams are pressed up and you are in a tough spot. Well, I'll do you a favor, but I want something in return. Like if I'm Chicago, I would consider taking on Matt Murray because you're going to be no good anyway. If you would go there. 1 year, you pay him, cap it, doesn't matter, and you move on. After his 1 year in Chicago, then he's free. I would do that, but I want a first-round pick back. That first-round pick you got from Boston, it's mine now. That would be my negotiating. And okay, go find another team that's going to do it for you that doesn't want that first-round pick or something else. Because I don't think you're going to find it. Because I think teams like Columbus, who are picking high in the draft, they believe they're going to be better next year. Arizona, they're not taking, okay. We'll do you a favor. We want something else. But I don't think they want to. There they got Vejmelka. They don't want Matt Murray with him. Not a good backup situation. Other bad, San Jose, they're not taking on that money. They're spending a ton of money already, and they're losing. They're losing every other game. They're not taking on more salary to lose. Mike Grier isn't doing that. Trying to get rid of salary, trying to trade Erik Karlsson this offseason. Which if you can get a deal for him, take it and run. But these decisions have to be made. And you sign the contract, you feel great about the player, and now you look at it and you're like, fuck. What do we do? We have no money. And we are pressed here. Because if the Oilers just say, we'll run it back with Jack Campbell and Stuart Skinner, that team defense is going to have to be on a whole other level if you're going to win a Stanley Cup. On a complete other level. Your defense core is going to have to be revamped. Your forwards are going to have to block shots like crazy because those two guys are sieves. And if the argument is, well, Jack Campbell was really good in garbage time, I don't want to hear about it. Or was he in the real games? Oh, yeah, he wasn't playing because we didn't trust him to play. What's his relationship with Jay Woodcroft like? Woodcroft played him something like 4 games in the last 2.5 months of the season, all back-to-backs. Stuart Skinner was the guy since about January. Jack Campbell will report to training camp. He's got the contract. He's got the money. He's under. He's an Edmonton Oiler, but woof, they don't want him there. Decisions for these teams. Seattle Kraken, second season, Game 7 of the second round. Impressive stuff. They battled all year. They played hard. They completely just threw the wall at you every night. And they had a really impressive year. They really did. To get this far, Dave Hackstall, a coach that people were like, why'd you hire him? He had a great year as a head coach. And now they enter an offseason with momentum. Their fan base is engaged. They're excited about hockey in Seattle. And now they have decisions to make. For this team, they got a lot of decisions to make. Vince Dunn's a restricted free agent. He makes $4 million. I think he's going to want a significant raise. I'm talking $3 to $4 million raise. Because you could argue he was their best defenseman. Him and Adam Larson were a defense pairing. They logged a lot of minutes. He was important. Carson Soucy, another defenseman, quietly had a really good season. He makes $2.75. I like the player. To me, he was a guy that was in Minnesota, didn't get a whole lot of runway, comes to Seattle, and was very, very good. So you need to find the money or decide to bring him back. And he's 28. So he's still in a good position. Martin Jones, UFA, goaltender. I think you probably move on. He did great beginning of the season, was a really solid backup. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to bring him back with a pay cut. Ryan Donato, Will Borgen, Cole Lind, Cale Fleury, Alex True is a guy I think could move out from the AHL next year because the American Hockey League team for Seattle is Coachella Valley. They're still in the American Hockey League playoffs right now. There's also Daniel Sprong, who's a UFA who came in on a PTO and had a fantastic season. Made $750,000 last year. Will certainly make more this year, and he is 26. So they don't have blockbuster names as free agents, but they haven't had blockbuster names their entire franchise. To me, their captain is going to be, it's either going to be Adam Larson, because I think he's just the pillar of the team, or they're going to give it to, the spark plug, the main man in Tampa Bay. That's who they're going to give it to. Because he just gives it his all every night, and he's a pain in the ass, and he scores goals, and Tampa misses him. Tampa misses him dearly. The fact that he is always around the puck. He's always doing the smart thing. And his name's, I can't believe I'm blocking his name currently. It's going to bother me. Yanni Gourde, my early dementia. Yanni Gourde, he's the heartbeat of the team. He does everything correct, and I think he sets a tone for the franchise. For Seattle, is there a splash that they can make? Do they view it as, do they need? I like their defense. I'd bring Soucy back. I would try to bring Vince Dunn back because I think he's fantastic. Can you get a number one centerman? It's hard to do. They do have Shane Wright, who will likely be an NHL player next year. How good he will be, that remains to be seen. We have seen, Matty Beniers was a rookie this year, and technically he was a 19-year-old, so he'll be the same age as Shane Wright. He might win the Calder Trophy, Matty Beniers. So Shane Wright could come in and have that same impact. We're seeing guys play a year at college, play a year in the play a year in another year in the CHL, and come back and have a big impact. Shane Wright's currently playing for Coachella Valley in the American Hockey League playoffs as we speak. So he'll be around. Hopefully, have some of those pieces. But is there a possibility for you to get somebody? If I'm Seattle, I'm not splurging. I'm not overspending on Ryan O'Reilly. He's not what he used to be. I don't think they will, because I don't think that's Ron Francis's MO. Ron Francis is building Seattle like he built Carolina. They're good defensively. They're physical. They're not fun to play against, and they will swarm you for days. Now, how far will that get you? Carolina now, with Donnie Waddell running the ship, are in the conference final. And it's their third conference final in 6 years, which is impressive stuff. Their best player, in my opinion, is Jacob Slavin, followed by Sebastian Aho. Two really good players, but neither of them superstars. So you can get to a conference final, but will they get to the Stanley Cup? We have to wait and see. So I think the way they're building their team gives hope watching Carolina have the kind of success that they're having. I would stay the course. I would continue to play because they get better come playoff time. They had their struggles throughout the seasons, finding ways to squeak in. Philip Grubauer, he's always a question mark in net where you gave him a ton of money. Is he worth it? Probably not. So, and he's injury prone, so that's always a concern when it comes to him. But I like the way they build their team because they know who they are. And they know what they have to do. They know everybody has to give a shit on the ice, has to put in their max effort. And for much of the postseason, Jared McCann, their best player in the regular season, 40 goal scorer, wasn't available because Cale Makar injured him. So if I'm Seattle, if something comes up where you can get a superstar player, I would look into it because I think it helps the team. If you can do it without obliterating what you've done, what you've built, and the foundation of your team, I would certainly consider it. Like if the Maple Leafs called, which I don't think the Maple Leafs will, because I don't think the Maple Leafs look at Seattle's team and values most of their players. But if they said, do you have any interest in Mitch Marner? I would look at it. Say, who are we willing to part with? Who doesn't fit our mold, or who can we send out? Boston Matthews available. Obviously, you take that call. You know, an interesting team that might fit a Seattle trade are the Rangers. I think the Rangers want to get bigger. I think the Rangers want to get stronger. They were a weak team that played on the outside and lacked team toughness this year. And Chris Drury is on the hot seat. He fired his bullet. Gerard Gallant is gone. He's not going to have many more. To me, he could look around and say, well, we got a lot of good skill players here in New York. You got some guys that maybe people don't think of that are tough, that are difficult to play against. Would you be willing to part with Bjorkstrand or Tolvanen, Tanev, some of these names? I don't think they're trading Yanni Gourde, but would you part with him? And you send back, a package of players in return. Philip Hedl, move on. Do they decide to move on from him? Do they? I still think there's a Chris Kreider trade somewhere that makes sense. And Chris Kreider's a player that plays with grit, and he's a New York Ranger for life. But hey, you got to do what you got to do to get better. And teams aren't just going to make trades with you for crap that you don't want. That's something you got to remember too. You got to make it worth their while, and you got to make them feel like they're gaining something in the trade. I think Seattle has options. I think they have the ability to play around and see what happens. And I just don't think they look at themselves in the mirror and say, San Jose's not very good. Anaheim's got the second pick in the draft, but they're not going to be better than us next season. The Oilers are good. It's going to be tough for us to beat them, but technically we did better than them this year. Vegas might go to a Stanley Cup final. They might win the Stanley Cup. But they always have decisions to make every offseason. They're always in cap hell, and if they just won a Stanley Cup, they're going to be ready to win another one right away. Calgary is who knows? They're looking to make changes. They don't have a GM. They need all these things to go right for them. We're in a good spot already. They need to get to our level before they can even think about winning. Vancouver, I don't know. So I think for Seattle, they look in the mirror and say, we're in good shape here. In our division, we are at worst third, fourth, right? That's the worst place we are. And if you're third in your own division, you make the playoffs. You make the playoffs. And they weren't third in their division this year. They ended up finishing fourth in their division. They get Colorado. They dethrone the champs. Impressive stuff. And there are different vibes to teams. Like Seattle feels better about their season than Toronto does. Or Edmonton. Or Boston. It's different ways of looking at it. Because if anybody would have told you Seattle's going to win a round and go to Game 7 of the second round this season in October, you would have said you're fucking crazy. And they did it. Now, if you would have told me Vegas is in the conference final, I would have said you're crazy too. Because I didn't see this coming. And yet, the ironic thing is, they're in the conference final, and I didn't trust their goalies at the beginning of the year. I don't trust them now, but I trust their team. I trust their team to play well in front of them because they've had 5 goalies. None of them are that good. Logan Thompson's the best of the bunch, and he hasn't played a playoff game yet because he's injured. And he likely won't, so they're going to have to win a Stanley Cup with Aiden Hill or Jonathan Quick or who the hell knows who's coming out door number 5. The Vegas Golden Knights have been in the league 6 years. They've been to 4 conference finals. 4. Isn't that staggering? How quick success can come. And they've been aggressive and they've done things, you could say, in a crazy manner. It doesn't matter. It's worked for them. Paul Stastny, we're sick of you. Get out. Gerard Gallant, take a hike. Peter DeBoer, see you later. They just get rid of people. We want Alex Pietrangelo. Okay, we're going to go get him. We're sick of you. Get out. But yet they've kept Riley. They've kept Marchessault. They've kept Bill Karlsson. Shea Theodore's been there the entire time. The nucleus of the team is still there somewhere, but they've made a lot of changes around the edges. Jack Eichel's been really good this postseason. Credit to him. Tomorrow I'm going to tee up the 2 conference final matchups. They're both intriguing for different reasons. But I will say this about the NHL. They're not happy about these conference finals. I don't know how good viewership's going to be. It'll really test how much people love the sport of hockey. And I'm talking about ratings even in Canada. Are people going to sit down on a Thursday night to watch Carolina, Florida? I am, but that's me. Vegas, Dallas. The Sun Belt is winning out. Let me tell you, if I was covering this series, there's not many better matchups. I could just pack, pair of pants for the game, just dress shorts. Why pack anything else? Good weather every spot. May, just that heat in Florida. Then you get take the edge off a little bit. You go to Carolina. You're in Dallas. And then you go to Vegas on the Strip. My God, sounds like a good time to me. But do I think the NHL loves this Final Four? No. I think if the NHL could pick a Final Four when it comes to viewership. In the East, certainly the Rangers. Certainly the Rangers would be number one because they're the biggest market. And people do care about hockey in New York. I'm prone to say Toronto, but that is from a Canada sense. And there's big viewership in Canada, no doubt about it. But Canada is only so big. It only has such an audience. And if you could get Rangers Leafs, original 6, that is nice. Or if you went Rangers Red Wings, I'm kind of inclined to say Rangers Red Wings would be their pick. People love Detroit. People love the Red Wings. They get good viewership. They're always on TV. I'm going to say Rangers Red Wings for the NHL if they could pick. Red Wings didn't even make the playoffs. So if this year, Rangers Maple Leafs. Out West, West is tougher because of the time zone and things of that nature. Who would the NHL want to win out West? No team from Canada. No team from Canada, I would say. Although maybe because Canada, the viewership for later games might go down. So let me think about this. Los Angeles is one, I would think, because it's LA. And whether people care about hockey in Los Angeles or not, they're going to sell out the arena. Celebrities are going to be there. You can show them on the TV screen. Good gate, 50-50. I'm going to say LA. And honestly, Vegas wouldn't be far behind. They've been in the league 6 years, but they've had such an imprint on the game. And honestly, it hasn't been a Gary Bettman thing where he's had to prop them up. I mean, you get to 4 conference finals in 6 years, you deserve fucking credit. You've been more consistent than any team in pro sports. You've been more consistent than LeBron James over that stretch when it comes to getting to finals. The only one Stanley Cup final in that, but 4 conference finals in 6 years. Impressive stuff. It might be Vegas, LA, because that's a rivalry too. There's passion there. California, Nevada. That'd be another good one. Let's fix. Oh, West, you want? Let me take that back. Maybe Chicago, Vegas over LA. Might be Chicago, Vegas because I think the NHL loves what Vegas has done, which they should. Because the fans show up, it's a fun environment. People are going there for games. They love. My parents went to a game there. They loved their experience. They really talked it up. Did they go back in a heartbeat? Plus, they went to Vegas not thinking they liked Vegas. They liked it. I think people go there and kind of have this, take on it. And then you go and say, well, it's pretty fun. That was a sidebar conversation, but I was just, you think about pro sports leagues and where you want their teams to finish, who you want in these spots to get viewership. And you think, well, it's the NBA, it's the NHL, it's the NFL. It doesn't matter who's playing. There's only one league that can say that confidently. That's the NFL. They don't care. People are going to watch it. They got the Detroit Lions on opening night. The Detroit Lions. Why? Because people are going to watch. It's opening night. Patrick Mahomes. Doesn't matter. He could be playing fucking aliens. They tune in. It's not the same thing for the other sports. Why are the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball so often? Because people watch the Yankees. Why are the Red Sox, Cardinals Sunday Night Baseball last Sunday and they're blocking out maybe the NHL game? That's the reason. or Succession, like I pontificated, because that is what people watch. That is what people care about. In the NBA, I think they're pretty happy with their conference final matchups. They get Boston, huge market, one of the most passionate fan bases in all of sports, regardless of team. Bruins, Celtics, Patriots, they love them all. Boston's going to show up. They're good. You like having them in. Though the Knicks would have been better than the Miami Heat. But you also get the Miami Heat. You get Pat Riley. You get South Beach. Get people down there. They're one of the most impressive franchises in pro sports over my lifetime. You think about it. Shaq and Wade won a title in 06. They win their first one in 2012, win another one in 2013, get to the final in 2014, and they've been to two NBA championships since, and they went to a conference final last year. They're in the conference final again this year with a bad team. They're in the conference final with a bad team with Jimmy Butler and a bunch of rotation pieces that would make you scream. Duncan Robinson's playing minutes. There's no Tyler Hero. There's no Victor Oladipo. But yet here we are. Celtics Heat, a rematch of last year's conference final. To me, this series is simple, and I don't see it being very close. I have the Celtics winning this in 5. I have the Celtics winning this in 5 because they are just flat out a better team. They have more depth. They have more superstars. And I just think the Heat they got by the Bucks where Giannis was hurt and they overcame it. And then they play the Knicks and they get a favorable matchup and the Knicks screw the pooch where Julius Randle is a complete nightmare and Jalen Brunson has no help and they win. But now you're playing a team that is on a mission. You're playing the Celtics who came back from 3-2 down for the second straight year, beat the 76ers in Game 7 at home. Jason Tatum dropped 51, which is an NBA record. We look at it, you go Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. You got Robert Williams back in the starting lineup, Al Horford, the stopper. How do the Heat win this series? Well, Jimmy Butler's got to be great. And he's playing with a bad ankle, if you ask me. He hurt it in Game 2 of the second round. He hasn't been the same player since. And if he's not playing it at all at a superstar level, I don't think the Heat even have a chance. But the Heat role players have to be fantastic. Strus, Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry off the bench is going to have a presence. And I don't think they have enough. I think the Celtics have so much depth. The Celtics are a team that plays with structure. They know who they are now. Joe Mazzulla's figured out things a little bit more. And I'll even put it this way. I think if the Celtics lose this series, it's one of the biggest choke jobs in modern NBA history. This should be a slaughter. This should be a landslide. This should not be close. And to me, Celtics fans that are like, well, I'm worried about the Heat. No. Go take care of business. This is the luckiest you're getting. The Nuggets and Lakers are going to kill themselves on the other side. Both teams are really good. They're evenly matched. And I think that it's going to go deep, that series. This should be done 4 or 5 games. Finish it, have some time off, and prepare for the NBA Finals, which will be on your home floor, by the way. Be ready for that. Have the ability to take days off, to rest, to have everybody mentally prepared, and for the opposing team to come in tired and just a little more lethargic going into the NBA Finals. And they have to travel to you. So I got Celtics in 5, and again, shouldn't be close. But knowing the Heat, it will be. The other half, we got Lakers Nuggets. Game 1 was last night, which really turned out to be a really interesting game. First half, the Nuggets score over 70 points. Nikola Jokic was He had 17 rebounds in the first half. He had 11 in the first quarter. Setting up players, finding guys, getting offensive rebounds, putting in putbacks. He finishes with a triple-double, and the Nuggets squeak away with the win. But that wasn't the bigger story. They win 132-126. But it was the comeback from the Lakers. It was the fact that they battled back into the game. And here's the thing for both these teams coming out of game one. For the Lakers, Anthony Davis dropped 40 points. He played 42 minutes. He was great. 40 and 10, so he had a double-double. I still think Jokic was better than him, and I think Davis needs to do a better job defensively and score less points. LeBron I thought he was good last night, not great. Nearly had a triple-double, but I think at times he was a little passive. He wanted to get players involved. I think he should just took the game over, but he was very good for the Lakers last night. The guard play for the Lakers lost in the game, to me, quite frankly. Schroeder and D'Angelo Russell combined for 14 points. And they didn't bring anything to the table. They weren't dynamic. They weren't doing crazy things that made you totally impressed with them. But the rub here is the Lakers don't have any other guards to go to. They didn't play Malik Beasley again. They're not playing Troy Brown. Off the bench, they play Hachimura, Lonnie Walker, and Vanderbilt. Those are all between 3 and 5 position. So their guard play is limited on who they go to. And their best guard on this team is LeBron James, like it always is. And you could argue Austin Reeves. He had 8 assists last night as well, setting up Davis and Hachimura. So while Jamal Murray dropped 31, had a slow start to the game, but really what the Lakers never figured out was Jokic was using that high screen. Jamal Murray was coming off it, nailing threes at the top of the key. He did this 3 times to begin the second half, and he just kept getting that look, and he was knocking it down. That was the best version of Jamal Murray you're going to get last night. But you had Jamal Murray, who had 31, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had 21. So the guard, you look at the guards, 52 points to 14, that's the game. Because Aaron Gordon only had 12 for the Nuggets. And for bench scoring, the bench of the Lakers outscored the Nuggets, but Bruce Brown was really good with 16 points off the bench. He provided a spark. But if I'm the Lakers in game 2, the adjustment I'm making is what I would do is I would take D'Angelo Russell out of the starting lineup. Austin Reeves becomes a guard, but he's also a forward, so you got a really big team. So you go Schroeder, Reeves, and I throw Rui Hachimura at the 3 position / LeBron. You have a huge lineup on the floor where you have so many guys to throw at Jokic. Be harder to get offensive rebounds, which is what the Nuggets did incredibly well last night. Tougher for him to get to the basket. And I just think Hachimura did a really good job in the fourth quarter. He played a ton of minutes in the fourth quarter, going up against Jokic, making his life difficult. And Jokic didn't score a point in the fourth quarter until the last 3 minutes. He started to break through a little bit. They started giving him the ball again, and he made sure they got the win. But I think for the Lakers, they figured things out as the game went along. They made adjustments. They made different decisions that helped them in the game. I think the Nuggets have less options. That's why I have the Lakers winning the series. I love Jokic. I think Jokic is the best player in the series. He's better than LeBron currently. He's better than Anthony Davis. But you look at Hachimura, you look at Reeves. I trust Reeves more than I trust Michael Porter Jr. I trust Reeves more than Aaron Gordon. Just Kentavious Caldwell-Pope put up 21 in game 2. I doubt it. And I just think that the Lakers can make more decisions defensively that can make life difficult for the Denver Nuggets. But it was a fun game. It was a fun game. I mean, watching Jokic in that first half was maybe the best half of basketball I've watched all year. He just was a man on another level. He did whatever the hell he wanted, and the Lakers couldn't do a damn thing about it. But he's producing in the playoffs. His argument that he wasn't a playoff performer, that is out the window currently. Game 2 is Thursday in Denver. Game 1 for Heat Celtics is this evening in Boston. But I got Lakers in 6. I got Celtics in 5. So those are my 2 picks to get to the NBA Finals. Something about, I think the Lakers will do more to adjust than the Nuggets can do. And I think that might be the prevailing theme in this series. Also last night, there was an NBA draft lottery. The draft lottery to see who would get Victor Wembanyama. And it's funny, the NHL and the NBA had a similar theme this year. Generational talents at the top of the draft that everybody's looking to get. So it's tank, tank, tank. And the NBA does it different when it comes to odds. I wrote this down. So the odds in the NBA, 3 teams had a 14% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick. San Antonio, Houston, and Detroit. Then went down to 12.5%. There was Charlotte, 10.5% Portland, 9% Orlando, 6.8% Indiana, 6.7% Washington, Utah, 4.5%, and it continued to go down from there. So we get to last night. I'm watching the draft lottery, and Detroit falls out of the top 4. They were tied for the best odds. They get the 5th pick. So that means the Trailblazers are moving up. 4th pick goes to the Houston Rockets. They also had a 14% chance of getting it. Portland gets the 3rd pick in the draft. 2 goes to Charlotte, and the San Antonio Spurs will select Victor Wembanyama with the 1st pick overall in this year's draft. 7-footer from France. People are talking about him being the best prospect to come in, maybe even better than LeBron, which Adrian Wojnarowski was saying last night on the Mothership. We'll see about that. But he sure looks like a great talent. He was a good interview last night with Brian Windhorst at 2 a.m. in France. And the Spurs get Tim Duncan. They get David Robinson, and they go on to have tons of success. Tony Parker comes in, Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard. But they have, a 20-year period where they're one of the best franchises in sports. Spurs haven't made the playoffs in, I believe it's since 2016, 2015. So 8 years they haven't made the playoffs in San Antonio after having that kind of success. Greg Popovich is still the coach. They're not going to be great right away, but this is a changing. You get a player that can change your franchise, but you get David Robinson, you get Tim Duncan, now you get Victor Wembanyama. I'm happy about this because I have this opinion, and I said this about the NHL with the Blackhawks. If you're successful, you should be rewarded with high draft picks. You should not be rewarded for being garbage for years. Like the Edmonton Oilers winning all those draft lotteries was stupid because they never did anything with it. It took them forever to finally get McDavid the 4th time to hit. But you look at it, Chicago wins a draft lottery for Connor Bedard. They won 3 titles in 5 years. Why shouldn't they get the next best player? You're telling me they shouldn't get the next best player over Anaheim, who last won a title in 2007, who hasn't been good for a long while? Over, Buffalo again, or, these teams that, Buffalo selected first a number of times. What did they do with it? Not much. If you were successful in an era, like the Detroit Red Wings should have won a draft lottery because they were great for fucking 25 years, and they should have the opportunity to be great again because to me, that's karma, that's life. If you're doing the right things, if you're being successful, you should be rewarded with that. Spurs were last night. And I'm sure teams around the league, it's rigged for the Spurs. They want Wembanyama in a big market. Okay. San Antonio's a big market compared to the teams at the top. Yeah. Charlotte, not a big market. Not a big market. Michael Jordan's trying to sell the team. He wants to get the hell out of there. They have won under 40 games for 5 straight years. They stink. Charlotte, they could have used them. They'll get Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller from Alabama. Is San Antonio a bigger market than Portland? Yeah, sure. But again, not a big market team, not exactly sex appeal there in Portland. Is it a bigger market than Houston? I would argue no. Houston's a big market. Houston's got a lot of people. When you think of Texas, do you think of San Antonio or do you think of Houston? I'll tell you what, I think of Houston. I don't got a map in front of me, but are you flying? If you're flying into Texas, you're flying Dallas, Houston, not San Antonio. Is it a bigger market than Houston? No. Is it a bigger market than Detroit? I don't think so. So I don't buy that argument. I think the Spurs became a big market because they were successful. But what free agents were coming to San Antonio? This is when Jordan was winning with the Bulls, and you got people that come there. LaMarcus Aldridge was their biggest free agent signing, and he didn't win a title there. Monty was developed. Tony was developed. Tim Duncan, all these guys. Jakob Poeltl, drafted. Thiago Splitter, drafted. It wasn't people coming to San Antonio because they were just dying to play with these guys, to play for Coach Pop. No, they weren't. It was the opposite. They were building teams around San Antonio saying, we don't want to go to San Antonio. They're really good. We have to find a way to beat them because they're just better at drafting and develop players than us. So this San Antonio is a big market thing. It's a bullshit argument. It's not true. You can make yourself a preeminent market if you win. If you're successful, then you do it. Look at Vegas. They were a new franchise. Are they a preeminent market now? Yeah, because they're winning. They're talked about because they're winning. The Dallas Stars, not a big market in the NHL. They have made it to the conference finals 2 times in the last 3 years. Are they a big market? No. Are they getting the best play? All this? No. But guess what? You become more of a story when you win. There's always going to be teams that have the publicity, that have the coverage. Toronto, New York, NFL, New England. You might not be winning, but you're going to have it because there's more reporters there and people care about it. But the markets that do it off merit, that do it off winning, those are the impressive ones to me. Kansas City Chiefs, big market? No. But they're the most talked about, they're the most discussed franchise in the NHL, in the NFL. Why? Because they have Patrick Mahomes and they win Super Bowls. Cincinnati, a big market? No. But they got Joe Burrow, they got Jamar Chase, and they're a big threat. A big threat. So these things just come in waves for teams. I'm happy for the Spurs. The Hornets will get a good player at number 2. And I love seeing the Spurs. I think it was their chairman last night. He was representing the team at the draft lottery. He was fired up. I love that. Because that's how you should be. That's how you feel inside. He's excited. He's yelling, yeah, like he's pumped that their franchise is going to get better. Good personality. No problem with it whatsoever. I enjoyed it. Good draft lottery last night, followed by a really good NBA game. Solid night for basketball. And good for Vic. Go to San Antonio. Popovich is still coaching. Maybe he can build another contender by the time he's 80 years old. Who knows? But he stayed through some lean years to get the number 1 overall pick. Before we wrap today, could talk some baseball. Might save that for tomorrow. The Blue Jays are struggling right now. I'll tell you that. Yeah, they're struggling right now. But we'll get to that. We'll get to sticky stuff. I was watching some of that game last night. Sticky stuff. And Aaron Judge is getting called out for maybe cheating, although he's just cranking home runs throughout Rogers Center. So maybe Blue Jays fans just slow your roll a little bit. But the UFC made some big announcements yesterday. Some big, and it's not surprising that Dana White came out last night when I think about it. Because yesterday, Francis Ngannou, Le Predateur, the former UFC heavyweight champion, signed a new deal, but not with the UFC, with the PFL, Professional Fighters League, which you could argue is the second biggest MMA promotion in the world currently. He couldn't come to terms with the UFC. He was a free agent. He talked to different companies. He talked to One Championship. He discussed different things, but he decides to go to the PFL, signing a deal to fight on their pay-per-view card starting next year. He will be their headliner. He's now the face of the PFL alongside, Kayla Harrison and a few others. But he is now joining the PFL, and he'll be boxing later in 2023. So he's going to be able to box, make money off that, then go to the PFL, be the face of them. So was the champion at the time, had to vacate the belt. He leaves the UFC. Good for him. Make some money, get some more control. He's proven that there is an option for free agents. But Dana White sees this and goes, okay, Francis Ngannou is not going to own today. I'm going to stomp on it. I'm going to take back the narrative. I'm going to take back the control. So Dana White last night comes out and announces basically an entire fight card for the end of July in Salt Lake City, Utah, as this podcast goes full circle. He announces the main event fight between Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2 for the vacant BMF, which if you're not familiar, stands for Baddest Motherfucker title, which was originally a fight between Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal that Masvidal won. There's only one fight for that belt, but they will now fight for it in Salt Lake. Really a fake belt, but these two guys are both OGs of the sport. They need to give Dustin something. Gaethje was coming off a big win over Rafael Fiziev. And I think even if either man wins this belt, they'll get an opportunity to fight for a real title down the line as well. So the first fight was awesome. You have two guys that are legends in the sport, two guys that are still in their prime, I would argue. Poirier needed a fight that excited him. This is definitely one he said he would be interested in. So, great main event. Great main event. Co-main event announced, Jan Blachowicz, former light heavyweight champion, will be fighting Alex Pereira. This will be Pereira's first fight at light heavyweight since he was at middleweight, lost the title to Israel Adesanya. So this is a co-main. You could argue it's a kind of a number one contender type fight. If Alex can beat Jan, I think he will get an opportunity at the winner of Prohaska and Jamal Hill, likely in 2024. But it's a big fight. Blachowicz hasn't fought since December when he had the draw against Ankalaev, and he's got an interesting style. He likes to get guys to the ground. He's a big physical force. We'll see how Alex does at a weight class that I think is more fitting for him at 205. Love the co-main. Another fight in the card, Paulo Costa returning. Hasn't fought since last August against Luke Rockhold. He'll fight Akram Askarov, middleweight, surging contender. One of the guys that they're really excited about in the UFC at middleweight. Costa's coming back just off signing a new contract. So interesting fight for him. He's fifth in the rankings. Askarov is not ranked. So he kind of takes a risk, but he gets more money with his fights, likely more willing to accept it. Also, we got Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green, two OGs, two guys that love to just square up and throw and love it. Michael Chiesa against Kevin Holland. The always entertaining Kevin Holland. Michael Chiesa hasn't fought in a good while himself. This is a welterweight bout. Chiesa's in the rankings. Kevin Holland's looking to get back there with a big win. Two very different styles, so we'll see how that works. Also on this card, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson will fight Mikael Pereira. They were originally slated to fight next month in Vancouver. That was taken off. Now they will be fighting in July in Salt Lake. So, I mean, also Derek Lewis is on the prelims as well. This is a stacked card. This is a stacked card, and this card might be better than the International Fight Week in the beginning of July. I mean, this is that good a card to me. There's not a fight that doesn't really interest me. I want to see how Derek Lewis, if he can get back in the win column after losses to Spivak and to Gane and to Pavlovich. Wonder Boy last fought in December against Kevin Holland. They'll be on the same card. He's still got something in the tank. He looked good in that fight. Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green, two guys maybe at the tail end of their careers, but both have been great in the sport. Both deserve this opportunity on a pay-per-view main card. Paulo Costa was a surging guy. He's fought Israel Adesanya. Didn't win the belt, but he is very good. He's beaten Luke Rockhold. He's fought Marvin Vettori. Can he get better? Can he continue to improve? Interesting. Jan Alex, huge title implications. How does Alex look at 205? Can he stop takedowns? Can he do battle with a wrestler? All questions. And Poirier and Gaethje, we saw the first fight. It was fantastic. This is 5 rounds. And again, I think this they're fighting for a BMF title, but I also think whoever wins this will be giving serious consideration for a lightweight title shot down the road. Islam will likely fight the winner of Dariush and Dariush Oliveira next month in Abu Dhabi. But if that doesn't after that, is Poirier Gaethje going to get a title shot? I think it's definitely possible, in particular if they're fresh matchups. So that's UFC 291 in Salt Lake City. Awesome card. Again, love it. Also announced, Dana White last night, UFC 292 in Boston. This is in August. Aljamain Sterling will defend his bantamweight title against Sugar Sean O'Malley. Bantamweight title. Aljo just fought 2 weeks ago. And they're already announcing his fight for August, so a quick turnaround for him. He gets Sugar Sean. I don't think Dana White cares if what Aljo's going through, what's happening. He is booking this fight in Boston's his backyard. He wants to have this fight there. He wants Sugar Sean to be in Boston. And looks like it's a go. Also announced on this card, Zhang Wei Li returns. She'll defend her title against Amanda Lemos in the co-main. He couldn't let Francis win the day. He had to get the UFC back over. He had to get people excited again, and they are. And I think people are more excited for the UFC than they are to see Francis box, quite frankly. So there's that as well. I mean, Francis is only fighting in MMA February, March 2024. So it's a way to go. You got to wait a minute just to see it happen. I'm happy for Francis. I'm happy he got, but I mean, the UFC continues to put up really good cards. I think you get through this upcoming pay-per-view in Vancouver is very, it's okay. It's not a blockbuster. It doesn't make you want to spend money on it. I will because I have to. Well, because I love it. But I will watch that. But I mean, you look at it. You look at the main card. Manny Nunez, Arena Aldana. Okay, fine. Oliveira Dariush is the fight I want to watch the most. That's the real main event for me. Mike Mallet, Adam Fujit. Mallet is a Canadian. You want to put him on the main card. I get it. Is that worthy of being on a pay-per-view main card? No. Dan Iggy, Nylander. Fun fight. Definitely. Well, is it worthy? I don't know. Marc-Andre Barrio, Eric Anders. Again, another Canadian in there. To me, Chris Curtis, Imamov is a bigger fight. That's on the prelims. And to me, it's just, you got some history there. But it's an okay card in Vancouver. But after that, I think it's going to be a really strong summer for the UFC. Because following that, you got Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, middleweight fight with big implications. Josh Emmett, Ilya Topuria on ABC. Love this event. You got those two battling at featherweight. Amanda Ribas, Macy Barber. Fun fight. Bruno Silva, Brendan Allen. Neil Magny's on this card. Julian Robertson, the Canadian. Just fun stuff. That brings you into international fight. We have Volk, Yair, Pantoja, Brandon Moreno, Robert Whittaker, Drickus, Bo Nickel is back, Sean Brady, Jack Della Maddalena, Robbie Lawler's retirement fight. So there's a lot to be excited about in the UFC coming up. And yeah, they're putting out good events. So Francis can, release his news, but again, they get the one up over him, in my opinion, by announcing these and putting out a really, really good card that I don't think anybody's upset about. Tomorrow on the program, we will tee up the conference finals in the National Hockey League. Dallas, Vegas, Florida, Carolina. Talk about the key matchups, things to watch. I think something's going to happen today with the Toronto Maple Leafs when it comes to signing, firing. I don't know why. It just feels like Wednesday is the day of reckoning for me. So if there's news on that front, we'll react to it. Heat, Celtics, game 1 tonight. CHL playoffs on TSN. Watched a bit of that last night. Quebec Rampart got the win over the Halifax Mooseheads. They have a 2-1 series lead. In the OHL, Peterborough is a 2-1 lead over London, and the Seattle Thunderbirds have a 2-1 lead over Winnipeg. And we'll also talk some baseball tomorrow because there's a lot happening in the world of baseball as well. So thank you all for tuning in today. Appreciate the support as always. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. I'm Noah Warren, and this is To The Point.